Howdy, folks. Welcome back to 2X Labs. I am your host, Dr. Erica Miley. The selfish part of this show and the best part of the show is that I get to invite people that I want to talk to. And little does Terry know, I have been using her book with so many of my clients for quite a long time. I am bringing you Terry Cole, author of Boundary Boss, and now Too Much, a guide to breaking the cycle of high-functioning codependency. Terry, welcome to 2X Labs.
Erica, thanks for having me. I'm super psyched to be here.
We're going to, y'all get the pen and paper out because we're going to talk. This is going to be pretty dense because one of the things that I love about your book, Boundary Boss, is that you very distinctly give us a guide on how people need to understand what a boundary might feel like when they need one in their bodies, and then how to craft them. I think it's something that's completely left out of a lot of self-help and therapy training in like how to granularly create a boundary. So I really want to start with the big picture. Why are boundaries still such a struggle for cis women and assigned female at birth people?
Because we were trained. We were raised and praised to be self-abandoning codependents. I mean, think about what was the messaging we heard in childhood. Where's my happy girl? Turn that frown around. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So we were taught to be compliant, to be good girls, to support other people, to be selfless, to be nice. I mean, listen, we were all indoctrinated into the cult of nice in childhood. So what did that teach us? It taught us that prioritizing other people's preferences, desires, limits, and deal breakers was more important than prioritizing our own. And most women who come into my practice, cis women, I would say predominantly, have no idea. They literally don't know their preferences. So the way that I break down boundaries is I want you to think about your boundaries as your own personal rules of engagement. This lets other people know what's okay with you and what's not okay with you. And according to me, your boundaries are made up of your preferences, your limits, and your deal breakers. So it isn't enough to just know them, which many, many people don't even know what they are. But even if you did, it wouldn't be enough. You would have to know them and then have the language, be fluent enough in the language of boundaries, be a good enough communicator to be able to communicate them when you so choose. And since no one knew how to do it in my therapy practice, I've been a therapist for 27 years, and I had listen, you teach what you most need to learn, Erica. You know that.
No, preach.
It's just a fact. Like, what are the things we're drawn to? For me, I was a boundary disaster, and I wrote the book that I wished I had.
I just think, as of us therapists, I think that struggle to teach our clients boundaries. I mean, it's that glaring red flag of we need to help ourselves. We need it.
Yep.
And I definitely, this book was the book I needed growing up.
Great. And
I know so many of the cis women and assigned female at birth people I work with. I work with a lot of queer people, and this rings true for them too. A lot of my neurodivergent people, because of ableism and trying to fit in, they need boundaries in such a deep, deep way, and they love and hate going through this book with me.
Right.
So I would love to hear, what do you think the connection between poor boundaries and chronic resentment, burnout, or even like people pleasing is?
Well, I mean, listen, if you're not telling people what is okay with you and what is not okay with you, you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration, a lot of resentment, right? We expect people to read our minds. We want people to know how we feel when we don't tell them how we feel. We say people are entitled because they ask us to do things because we do not possess the skills to say no or to set a limit. So the way that I teach boundaries is I bring it all back to our side of the street, right? What is your side of the street? What are you actually responsible for? And it's not how someone else feels or what they think or what they want. And I think that there's a radical, really becoming fluent in the language of boundaries and asserting them in your life. This is a radical act of self-love. Like
Mhm.
it actually is a radical act because we are going against everything that we were taught. But on the other side of doing it is much better relationships, is
Mhm.
much less resentment, is much less living a life of checked boxes. It's just exhausting. Having disordered boundaries is absolutely exhausting. I mean, the autoimmune disorders, the cancer,
Yes.
TMJ, insomnia, like so many things I've seen in my therapy practice. And I can, it wouldn't matter the presenting problem, right? Whatever someone came in with, I could inevitably just connect the dots backwards to the lack of this incredibly important skill set.
Mhm.
And as people started realizing what their rights are, right?
Mm.
Like first you have to debunk all the myths around boundaries because it is such a bad rap, right? I mean, do you find that
Absolutely.
to be true?
Absolutely. I mean, back to some of my frustrations with other books or media that I've seen out there about boundaries, that there's just very little there about the nuance of creating a boundary, but there's a lot of like myths around it that are just pervasive. I do want to come back to that checkbox idea though.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many of us therapists were working with the trauma survivors. How does boundaries become part of, not another thing to get right?
Part of it is you have to have a deep understanding of why it's hard. You have to be super self-compassionate. When we have a deeper understanding of how not only were we not taught how to do it anywhere, we were actually encouraged not to do it. The more porous your boundaries, the more pliable you are, the more compliant you are, the better, is basically the messaging of childhood. So part of it is let's have some compassion for why this is like a completely foreign language. And you wouldn't feel bad if you were like, I
Mhm.
really, really want to speak Russian, but I'm just not smart enough to speak Russian. I'm going to wish real hard and wake up tomorrow, maybe I'll be fluent. Of course not. You'd be like, I can learn to speak Russian. This is the same thing. You can learn. And so I think we have to stay away from all the self-judgment that goes along with not, especially because most of my clients are high functioning codependents. And so
Mhm.
they're like, they could figure out anything. Why can't I figure this out? Another thing before we get into more of this, I want to talk a little bit about the myths, because I
Yes.
do think that as clinicians, we have to speak to these myths with our clients, because whether they are saying it or not, they are feeling it. There is a fear. My publisher initially did not want me to name my first book Boundary Boss.
Mm.
They were like, women don't want to be bosses. I was like, yeah, they do. They don't want to be bossy. I was like, trust me when I tell you, they'll understand. We know the people who are drawn to this book will understand that it means being masterful. But like already
Mhm.
how indicative of the friggin' problem that they're like, we're worried that that means people are going to see it as being bitchy. I was like,
Mhm.
no. So what are the top myths? Boundaries push people away.
Yes.
Not true.
I tried one and it didn't work.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you're going to brush your teeth once and hope that that fixes your cavity? Like, come on, man. Like, I tried one once. Hello? We have to do it again and again, just like
Mhm.
anything else. Because what boundaries really do is they are the bridges to deeper intimacy and healthier relationships, not the blocks. So that's the opposite of that myth. Real love needs no boundaries. That's another myth, right? Intimate relationships shouldn't have boundaries.
Whew.
Yeah, man. All love needs boundaries.
50 Shades of Grey really fucked us. It really did.
Yeah, you're like, no, man,
No.
that's really not how it is, though.
No.
Because actually, healthy love is boundaried love, right? We know what we can expect from each other. It's okay to set limits with each other or to say, I don't like that. This whole unconditional thing, I don't believe is true. I'm not saying it has to be transactional, but
Right.
I do believe we're allowed to have boundaries.
I think that that's what people probably mean when they say unconditional, is that it's not transactional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is a very important distinction you're making. What is important to you doesn't necessarily mean you have to give that up to love or receive love.
Absolutely. Right. Self-abandonment doesn't have to be a part of the, and really isn't in a healthy relationship. I mean, listen, we all compromise in long-term relationships. I've been married 27 years. I mean, of course. But that's not what I'm talking about. Self-abandonment and compromising are definitely not the same thing. All right. Setting boundaries are selfish. Oh, keeping the way you actually feel about things to yourself. Now, that's selfish. Saying yes when you want to say no. That's misleading as hell, right? Setting boundaries requires you to be mean. Nope. I can teach you. I wrote an entire book on how to do it with love and equanimity and kindness and more heat, right? If Bob from accounting is an idiot and you need to use a little bit more heat in that boundary setting, then go for it, right? But that's a choice. And boundaries are not inherently mean.
I am sure that you have seen the meme. I am sure you have seen the meme of the person who's working on people pleasing, making their first boundary. And the little meme is that the people are having a panic attack. I almost died. Did you see that? I almost died. And this meme is going in our show notes because this is exactly what you're talking about. You might feel inside your body that filled with panic and dread. But the act of it is not painful for the other person.
And here's the thing. It might be. Because the truth might be painful to them. But that's their side of the street, Erica, right? That's for them. If your intention is to tell the truth and you're not being overtly or you're not being sadistic in what you're saying, we cannot control how what we say is received. Some people would just be mad that you're starting to draw boundaries because they benefited massively from you having none. So we can't control that. And I think that, I will always get the question when people would be like, so how can I set boundaries without being anxious, without anyone being mad, and with everyone thinking it's the best thing that ever can happen? I'm like,
it's not possible. It's just not.
I mean, I don't know how to tell you how to do that. Like,
I haven't got that magic wand yet. I just haven't.
Exactly.
So how do we help clients deal with that discomfort that we're talking about? I think it does, this is the physiological and psychological discomfort that comes with facing this. How do we help our clients sit in it?
Part of it is, I really feel like all therapists need to master the art of boundaries themselves. So go get Boundary Boss, figure it out. I have a course I've got a community, and I actually have a community where I specifically have therapists in my community. I have a once-a-month call. It's a mentorship call for therapists around boundaries and codependency and just life, right? Because as caregivers and as people who are in service to other people, we have a specific set sometimes of things that are fatiguing or exhausting or whatever it may be. So first things first is we got to be able to sit with it and do it ourselves. And the second thing is reassuring them that to invite in the discomfort, that you're going to be okay. You're not that fragile. Your relationships are not that fragile. And here's the thing. If a relationship literally blows all the way up because you set a boundary, that ship was absolutely built on your self-abandonment. So that is not necessarily a great relationship for you. But mostly it doesn't happen because what is happening? Let's talk about why the fear is so intense. This is a child's fear. It is the child within. When we have a really amplified fear of saying no or setting boundaries, this is original injury work that we have to do.
What IFS people are shouting now. They're listening to this in their ears and they're like, yeah.
It's a fact. Because what makes it so scary? Well, if you grew up in a chaotic family system, if there was any kind of abuse, if having needs or trying to set a boundary in childhood made you unsafe, got you hurt emotionally, physically, in any way. And here's the thing. As kids, we don't need an inner office memo to tell us what is safe and what is unsafe. We're so adaptive. So what happens is we have all these adaptations in childhood that really did keep us more safe, that really did get us more love or more attention or whatever it is we were seeking. Then we grow up and those exact things become maladaptive. And
The
so
kid tools don't work. It's using the
No.
Fisher Price
Yeah.
when you need any of the brands that are adult tools, which I can't bring to mind right now.
Yes. When you need a real scalpel, not
That's
the
right.
operation game.
Yeah.
Correct. I will agree with that. So with clients, we hold their hand, metaphorically through the process, and we let them know, because part of the process that I walk you through in the book is expect that when we look at relationships like a dance. I do this, then you do this. When you change your dance moves, the person you're dancing with is going to notice. So if you do something different, like suddenly one of the stories in the book is that I had this very Italian mom who lived in Bensonhurst, and she was doing her son's laundry and making him sauce every week since he was in his 20s, and now he's in his 30s, and she's retiring, and she's resentful and doesn't want to do it anymore. And she's resentful of him, even though she never had the conversation about not wanting to do it. And so the conversation that, we had to get her to the point, I had to get her to the point of really understanding that she hadn't even given her son a chance to hear her out. She hadn't even told him that she was over it and that she didn't have the bandwidth to do it, and really just wanted to meet him once a week to have breakfast out together, have it be more social and less transactional, as we were saying before.
Yes.
And there's so much I should in there. There was so much, but a good mother. I'm like, here's the thing. He's 34. You can be a good mother to a 34-year-old and not be washing his clothes, very nicely. So part of it is we help people understand that, yes, changing relationships can be scary. And your relationship is so much more flexible than you think it is. And now, he was like, Mom, I wanted to talk to you about this for years, but I thought it was going to hurt your feelings, which sounds weird, right? But she was an Italian mother. Food is love. There's a lot of reasons why he felt the way that he did. And then they came to this agreement where she no longer does that. If they make sauce together, sometimes they do once a month, but they do it together. And then they both end up with sauce, as opposed to her fulfilling this role and then being resentful and then resenting him for it, which is unfair. So speaking up, setting limits, talking about your preferences, you have to think about this as a loving thing to do. And yes, you might get some pushback. And a little pushback isn't going to kill you. So I always prepare my clients where you're like, hey, it's going to be uncomfortable. I call it the in-between, right? There's this space in between. Our old defense mechanisms that we've been using forever, I'll be withdrawn in anger if they don't do what I want them to do, or whatever, all the ways when you don't have the skills to actually talk about boundaries or to draw boundaries or to make a simple request. Oh, we're still showing people our cards. We're just doing it in a very indirect sort of way. People know when Mom is mad, Mom hasn't said anything, but the whole house is like a freezer. Why is it so cold in here? Because she's pissed and not talking to anyone.
It's the pissed mist. That's what I call it. The pissed mist.
That's correct. Where it's freezing. What is going on? But people are confused. What they know is that you're mad, but they don't know why. So this lack of direct communication is really detrimental to our relationships. So how do we support clients through the process is we teach them how to build scripts. I have a whole 4-step process that you guys can do. We'll give you a little workbook that goes along with this episode, which will be in there. Just know who you're talking to, figure out the right time to have the conversation, figure out what boundary is needed.
Yes.
You're going to write the script. You're going to say the script into the mirror or to a friend so that you get it in your body before, because it can be very emotional. You might just spontaneously burst into tears, not necessarily because you're so sad, but because it's emotional to start talking true, as I would say, if you haven't for most of your life. And then we let it go. It's a win, whether the other person acquiesces to what you want or is mad. I can't believe you're changing. I don't like this. I thought you were okay with doing blah, blah, blah. I was when I was doing it. And now I'm not willing to do that anymore. I still love you. I'm sorry you're upset about it. But this is a boundary I need to establish for myself, for my own health.
Yes.
There's a million scripts that I give you in the book and that you guys can get to, even just as simple as, I'd like to make a simple request, right? And this is, I didn't make this up. This is from Nonviolent Communication. It's Marshall Rosenberg's work. I've been using it for decades because it's been around for decades. Because most requests that we have or simple.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean the person will do it. Doesn't mean they'll like it. But you can I would like to make a simple request that if you're going to be more than 10 minutes late, you let me know. That is a simple request. Will they do it? I don't know, maybe. They might. Some people are psyched when you give them the information they need to be in a relationship with you in a smoother way, right? Some people are like, "Thank you for telling me that.
And
I didn't
that is
know."
like a surefire way to understand that this is one of those healthy versions of relationship. I do want to come back to the helping therapists walk their clients through understanding where their boundaries are being violated.
Yes.
What is one of those do you have them key into body? Like how are you helping your clients?
I have so many, but I have different exercises, which I'll include. So first and foremost, I almost always have my clients do a resentment inventory,
Mm,
because this really becomes a pretty accurate GPS as
mm-hmm.
to where a boundary is needed, a boundary is being crossed, maybe one needs to be reestablished, or something is happening where a need is going unmet for you if you are copying resentment.
Mm-hmm.
So we make a list. What is the thing? And it could be something simple. You know, in the book, I give an example of when I was living in Manhattan, in New York City, and my sister was living there too. She would go to my apartment and she would borrow things without telling me she had a key.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, "Hey, just let me know." Like I didn't mind, but I wanted to know, because then sometimes I'd be looking for that item like a mad person and not realizing she had it.
Where
Then
did
we
it
got to the
go?
point where I was like, "If you don't tell me, I'm going to have to take the key back." Like we got to a point where it was like had to be a consequence. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh, you're so dramatic, but okay." And then she started telling me, because I was like, "Listen, then we both lose out. Then I don't have your closet either," right? Like at that point.
Yeah.
So you make the simple request. "Hey, I'd like to make a simple request." So what was if I was doing a resentment inventory, I would say, "I'm resentful that Kathy keeps going to my house and borrowing stuff without telling me."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we go to the part of, what is my part in that? Well, I hadn't said anything to her yet. At a certain point, right before I talked to her, I hadn't. So what
Yes.
is my next right action? Having a conversation and making a simple request that she let me know. Then what happens if you have a repeat offender, which we deal with in the book as well?
Mm-hmm.
You have to attach a consequence. So in that scenario, I attached the consequence of I would take her key back. And then I imagine she'd probably take my key back. And neither one of us would have double closets, which is really sad for everyone. And
Absolutely.
I didn't have to go to the consequence. But the fact is, I established one if she did not discontinue the
Mm-hmm.
behavior that was overstepping my boundary.
So when you get the repeat offenders, I would imagine, I mean, there's fear all the way through this process for a lot of our clients, right? And for us,
Mhm.
of course. But I'm kind of curious that repeat offender part, because I'm sure that this is, so many of my people have said, like, well, what if they do it again? What do I do next? When you have that client who's trying to face that fear,
Mhm.
because of like being afraid of being too much, being mean or ungrateful, and that they have to try to create a consequence, what are you usually going to encourage them to do?
Well, first of all, we don't create a consequence immediately, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
relationships, especially established relationships, you may have to make the request more than once, right? Because we're changing a habituated behavior or a relationship pattern. So it
Mm-hmm.
might take a minute. So we're also going to not take it super personally, right? If the
Right?
first time we ask them, they forget in 3 weeks from now, even though it's been okay for them to do that thing for like 15 years. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
we have to be a little bit patient and say, "Hey, babe, do you remember we had that conversation a couple of weeks ago? I asked you to text me if you were going to be more than 10 minutes late. And tonight you were half an hour late. And I was really worried. And I really need to be able to count on you to let me know."
Mm-hmm.
So we make the request again. We remind them, "Hey, we had this conversation." But then we make the request again. So, I mean, you have to decide how many times something is going to happen. But I would say, usually, for some people, you'll only have to have the conversation once. For some people, it might be more than that. And for some
Yes.
people, they might be used to you not keeping your word. You being dramatic and being like, I'm never going to whatever, and then doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're really changing the dance when you create boundaries. So expect it's going to take a minute. Expect that you might have to attach a consequence. And if you attach a consequence, like I only attached a consequence with my sister that I was willing to do. Right. So we
Uh-huh.
don't need to be like, we don't need hyperbole, hyperbole. We don't need to be like
No, all or
hysterical
nothing.
about it. Yeah. We don't have to be all or nothing.
None of that crap.
But with someone who I had a client whose partner, she cooked more than he did. Like they had different roles. And he was the one who was always late and not telling her. And it really hurt her feelings because she's like, I'm sitting here making dinner. He says he's going to be home at 6:15, walks in at 6:45. And, she has the dinner ready or whatever it is. And then she got to a point and her consequence was, if this happens again, I'm not cooking for you anymore. And we won't be able to eat together. Like I'll still cook, but you'll have to do your thing when you get home. And I really enjoy our time at night together. And it really makes me sad that it's coming to this, but it really is because it makes me feel so bad. When I ask you and you ignore, it makes me feel so unseen and so unimportant that if it happens again, I just don't feel like I want to be making dinner for you, right?
Now I need to know the spoiler, though. Did he change his behavior?
He did, actually, in that scenario, but it required her to be as honest, to be so honest about the truth of what it meant to her. She was like, I don't want to make him, in the beginning, she was like, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. I don't want him to think I'm being like ridiculous. You know what I mean? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not your side of the street. All I care about is what does it mean to you? And she's like, it means that I put in this effort. And it's the at least he could do is let me know after I've just spent an hour making dinner. And
Yes.
I want to make dinner. Like she liked cooking for him and he really appreciated it. It wasn't like he was this ungrateful jerk. It was just this thing that they got caught into, this sort of power struggle. But when she really got honest and then drew that boundary, he heard her and was like, okay, I really didn't realize it was this serious. And she's like, it is to me. And here's the thing, Erica, a lot of times we don't have to, when you're in a good relationship, we want to be clear about our boundaries. But sometimes you'll have a preference. I had this weird thing with my husband when we were first together, where when I would come into the train station, it was like one of those trestle train stations. So you'd be up top and I would look down to see if his car was there. And if his car was there, I was so excited. I was so in love. It was like insane. I mean, I still am because and it's almost 30 years later. But I would like literally run down the steps. I'd be so happy. But then somehow, if I looked over and he wasn't there yet, I would be like literally crestfallen. My feelings would be hurt in a way that makes zero sense. I still don't even understand why. And so in the beginning, I wouldn't say anything about it, right? I would just get in the car and be withdrawn in anger and be all pissy and weird and just be like, it's fine. He's like, how was your day? I'm like, no, I was just exhausted, but really I was mad. And then finally, my therapist was like, I have an idea. Why don't you tell him? And I knew it didn't make sense, but I was able to just say, hey, can you please try to be on time? When you're here, I get so happy. When I look over, when I don't see the car, I have no idea why, but I feel like crying. And he was like, babe, sure, okay, yeah. And I mean, that guy, I literally think in the 26 years since then has probably been late twice. Like, I'm not kidding. He really understood the assignment. And I was like,
Yes.
and I don't even know why. So I'm not making you wrong. Because he would never be more than 12 seconds. Like, I'd come down, he'd be pulling up, but I still would be like all sad. Didn't make sense. So my point in sharing that weird story is that it doesn't necessarily, you can have a request that doesn't even make sense. But if you're in a relationship with someone who loves you, and I don't mean this in like a controlling way. I don't mean a
Correct.
request that's like when you're out with your friends, it's my boundary that you text me every hour. Not that.
The weaponization of the therapy words. We're going to talk about that here in a second.
Yeah, dude, there's so much of it, especially with boundaries though. People will say something that is really a lever to control their partner and say, that's my boundary. Come into my office, I'm like, that is not a boundary. That's just coercion.
Correct.
They're just trying to get you to do something you don't want to do.
Absolutely. I do. I think this is a good point to talk about when there are truly consequences for people when they are trying to assert boundaries. And it's not only just like the loss of a relationship. Boundary work cannot and does not happen in a vacuum. There are very real systems, patriarchy, racism, ableism,
Yeah.
all of them that happen and people experience being punished for having needs. So how do we support therapists when they need to hold space for clients who face very, very real consequences like social or professional, losing a job? And how do we help them assert those limits?
I mean, listen, we have to. It's the same way people will talk about how do I assert this limit with my boss? I'm like,
Mm,
well, the way I would have you assert a limit or a boundary with a coworker would be different. A coworker, a
yes.
subordinate, or a boss. Those are three different ways that you would, because here's the thing, we have to be realistic about
Hmm.
what there is to lose. If we are
Yes.
setting a boundary with someone who has power over us, power to fire us,
Hmm.
someone's like, well, how can I tell my narcissistic boss that I'm like over his bullshit? I'm like, get a new job? Like, I don't think you're gonna tell your narcissistic boss you're over his bullshit.
Yeah.
It's unlikely he's gonna change, and he's definitely gonna then punish you. So
Yes.
it depends on the situation that the person is in. What can they afford to lose?
Hmm.
Is there a safe way to go about getting that need met and establishing that boundary, right?
Yes.
Is there an HR department that you can
Hmm.
say, what are the rules and regulations around accommodating what I need because of my challenges, because of
Hmm.
what is happening for me? So I
Yes.
think that doing a lot of research first
Hmm.
before we go blazing into any situation, because the same way I would look at anything is I back myself into every situation from the point of view of what do I want to get,
Yes.
right? What is it?
What is the outcome?
Yes. What am I seeking? Well, I just want to give my boss a piece of my mind. No, that is a bad reason to do it. Don't do it, right? Let's be strategic. Your boss isn't your friend, right? What do you want? Do they owe you more money? Are you working? They're trying to coerce you to work hours that they're not paying you for? Well, let's talk about that. That's different and illegal.
Hmm.
And that's where you go, okay, who else is doing it? What is the corporate culture? Have other people who've spoken up gotten let go? Are
Hmm.
you willing to get into it and have a lawsuit? Can you afford to do that? Do you want to do that? Because you may have to if you really want to set a boundary. And it may not be worth it depending on your situation. So I think that there has to be some reality testing that we do with clients and realize not everyone is in your VIP section,
Yes.
right? In life. So not everyone needs to know how you feel about everything. And in fact, most people shouldn't even, right? It's not your most tender heart is something that I want you to reserve for people who are emotionally trustworthy. So that's your VIP section. Those are people who you can trust. So I always also have my clients construct a VIP section as if they are the bouncer and they have made the guest list. And this
Mm.
does not have to include if your family is not trustworthy. You don't have to cut them off. Just don't let them that close to your most tender heart. They are not in your
Hmm.
VIP section. Know who you're dealing with. And this is the same thing with drawing boundaries at work. In a work situation, there's going to be plenty of evidence in a work situation as to how people react to boundaries. And that doesn't mean you don't do it, but you've got to do it with your eyes wide open.
I think that's really that's going to be that's a cornerstone probably of creating a culturally responsive boundary work framework with your people. That pre-work, the essentially you're doing research to see what is possible here. If you're working with queer people, if you're working with disabled people, if you're working with people like, I mean, especially right now, people who might have to be avoiding things like ice. So we really do have to have a reality check about what does it actually mean for this person to create a boundary. And I think that that's probably step one in creating that culturally responsive boundary work.
I think through the lens always of safety, like for me,
Yes.
right? The client's safety is going to be the top priority. So, especially as you're saying in these times, trans folks, like this is dangerous out here in these streets.
Hmm.
And I feel
Absolutely.
like how the client feels, of course, matters and what they want matters. And you'll have people who are absolutely willing and have the fortitude. They want to go to the mat. They want to do it. They're going to get legal, whatever the thing is.
Yes. They have the financial means to do so, or they have the financial means to move out of the country, or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And
But not
though you're
everyone
still
does.
taking exactly, you're still taking stock of those things.
But there's so much more that you can do also in your life, right? For clients. I mean, most people have disordered boundaries in so many relationships, right? We're looking at macro, right? By looking at like what is the greater context that we're looking at, let's say work and marginalized groups and all of that. Like, what do we have to deal with the patriarchy and what's happening politically and all this other stuff? And yet there's so much work to be done. Just internal boundaries, just starting with the way that we relate to ourselves. And for the therapist, I'm always interested in, how are your internal boundaries? Do you do what you say you're going to do for yourself? Do you have the inner boundaries to end your sessions on time? Do you realize that going over time with your clients, unless it's really an emergency, is just having disordered boundaries, and it's not good for your client, it's not
Look
good for
at
the
you
therapy?
calling me out right here, Terry. Come on now.
It takes one to know one, Erica. Trust me, when I was in my early 30s, I literally had a client who didn't pay me for 8 months. Like, please, I was the boundaryless wonder. Trust me. So
I think this is really important. I think we should get granular about what could, because more than likely, right? Like if your idea is that most of us are out here walking around with disordered boundaries, there's got to be obviously a ton of us therapists that are. So how can we model what we're still working on? You talked about like that. What other things, like in someone's practice, should they be thinking about?
Well, you should create space for your clients to get mad at you, which is
Mm,
scary if you're someone who is, conflict avoidant, where I would always warn my clients, hey, this is a real relationship that we're building. And there are sometimes going to be interventions that I do, things that I say that might make you mad. And you
mhm,
have all the space and latitude in the world to please tell me. This is the work, because what you and I are creating here means you're going to be able to create this in your life, right? This
mhm.
is a microcosm of your life. We are building a healthy relationship, and you're allowed to get mad at me, just like you're allowed to get mad at people in life, because I'm
Mhm.
just a person. And yeah, do I know more about mental health than you do? Probably. But my point is, I'm not perfect and I'll make mistakes. And then, of course, what does that do? Now this models behavior. One of my clients said, I've really felt like in the last session, you cut me off before I was done talking. At the end, I was like, all right. I said, I am really sorry that I did that. Do you remember what you were saying? Can you continue now? And has that happened before? Like, I was just
Mhm.
like, is there more you want to say about that? Let's go to it. And what ends up happening is the client realizes, A, you're not fragile. The most important thing is, as therapists, one of the most important things, we don't want our clients thinking they have to take care of us.
That's right.
I would always say, kind of in a joking way, when they're like, how are you? I'm like, I always will. My response is like, oh, a better question is, how are you, since it's your session, or whatever, And then some of my
Mhm.
long-term clients are like, one of them the other day said, so I can never ask you how you are. I can never. I'm like, I'm great, babe. I'm great.
Mhm. Yeah.
Back to you, because what we're
Correct.
not is friends. We are not
Yes.
friends. And of course, and listen, another thing, I used to always say to one of my supervisors, oh my God, I love this kid so much, or I love this, and she'd be like, stop saying you love your clients. I'm like, here's the thing, Ruth, I actually do. I do.
Yes.
I
If
don't
it,
tell them I love them, but I
no.
have love in my heart for my
Yes.
clients. Does that make me a
Exactly.
bad therapist? Of course not.
No. But it's
Right?
understanding the bound. That is a nuanced understanding of a boundary. You wouldn't ever say it, but it is admitting that we are creating something that is more complex in the room than just saying like we're paid helpers or we're paid to listen to your problems. Like it is acknowledging that we are dealing with a complexity of boundaries that is
Yes.
different than average people.
Yes. But other boundaries, Erica, that you were talking about before that I could quickly hit, that I think we should for
Yes.
therapists, is how you handle money. Being
Yes.
so clear, having agreements. And agreements
Mhm.
when people start working with you. This is what it is. This is what the payment is. You will pay me on the first of the month, blah, 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 whatever you're doing. We're so clear. You go over
Mhm.
the paperwork with them. I have a 24-hour or 48-hour cancellation policy. If
Mhm.
you do not give me more than 24 hours, you will still be charged for that session in full.
That's right.
Do you have any
That's right.
questions? And when you do that, then my clients would say to me, hey, I have to cancel, and I know I'm responsible for the session. I'm like, great.
That is exactly what they say to me. Because I'm so clear in my cancellation policy.
Yes.
They will say to me in an email, please charge me.
Yeah. They
because
know.
I've been clear.
And that makes them trust you. When we're unclear and we have disordered boundaries, you are not emotionally trustworthy. So the reason why boundaries, especially as clinicians, are so important. Another thing is, two more things. One is about how much self-disclosure. So we want to make sure we're never co-opting the client's session. And that doesn't mean, to me, it doesn't mean never self-disclosure. Like, I had an amazing professor at NYU when I was getting my master's, and this was a fear of mine because of my own personality, that I was like, what would you not self-disclose? He said, honestly, I would self-disclose anything without co-opting the session if I truly believed in my therapeutic heart that it might help the client.
Yes.
And I was like, I like that. And that is exactly what I took. And that worked for me. Some people have no self-disclosure, and that's okay too. My style is my style, yours is yours, as long as we're not endangering the client or doing anything inappropriate or co-opting the session. You have to be really mindful that sharing something briefly so they see you as a human being, it gives them hope a lot of times that if you could change it, so can they. You got to be mindful that you're not co-opting.
Yes.
Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is social media. This wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing when I started it either. I've been licensed for 10 years. You've been doing this longer than me, but still, it was not something that we had to think about when I first started.
But you do now.
Yep, absolutely.
So if you have, it will influence the work. So if I were starting a practice now, for me, I have very few clients. It's all high, it's not a regular practice, If I were starting now, I would not let clients follow me. I would not.
Interesting.
I would not comment on their stuff. I would not want them commenting. I would not follow them. I would keep it really clean because it's better for the work. Now, in this world where everyone's on social media, and it's hard because as you build, there's a lot of therapists. Another whole conversation we could have is people having
exactly their entire they make money at it.
Yep, their whole life. I mean, having a public brand, which I do, and I have for the past, probably almost 15 years. Writing books, being public, being interviewed, being on television. There are things to consider in doing those things. And so if you want to also still have a private practice, a lot of times you may have people though who have come to you because of your social media. So you have to either have the conversation that says, part of it is, if it's your professional page and there's not a lot of personal crap on it, that's less bad, or that will have less impact on the work itself. If it's your personal page too, because here's the thing, many of us, if you looked at my brand, you would say, I have a personal and professional brand all in one, right? Most of what I post, I hope is helpful to people. It's therapy content. And I post about my dog once in a while, and I post about my husband more than once in a while. And my family. So there's that, which I would do differently if I were a young therapist now. Because we don't have the power to change how your client, knowing a lot about your personal life, how that influences the transference and even countertransference that we're going to be experiencing as clinicians in session. And I think that that's another thing. We could do a whole thing on that as well, Erica. I mean, honestly.
I think it's a really important conversation because of what's happening right now. We have therapist influencers. The world is entirely different than it was 10 years ago. And the way that I handle it is I have a professional one and I have a private one. And the thing I would challenge a brand new therapist on today is you are allowed to have a life that is not in performance to others.
Yep, agreed.
You are allowed to have a life that has nothing to do with your work, and your identity is not therapist.
I mean, obviously part of all of our identity is that, but what you're saying is you can have a private account where it's just you
Absolutely.
as a mom, a partner, a sister, a daughter, whatever it is that you are.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be serving a greater audience per se.
Or
And
make
yet
money.
there's so many people though, Erica, that
Yeah.
ask me, so many therapists want to know how do you have 250,000 people following you on Instagram? Have a podcast, have books. How do you do that? And here's the truth for me is that I did it not the way anyone else thought that I should do it. Everyone thought what I was doing was the wrong way to do it, which is giving away too much free
Yeah.
stuff. I still don't have ads in my podcast that I've had for 10 years in September.
Love that.
I mean, 9 million downloads of my podcast, like very popular, always in the top 20-25 of mental health on iTunes for years. But it serves something else for me though, which is that my goal is to even the playing field a little bit, right? I don't think that only people with money should be psychologically well. I think
Correct.
that people are smart and that if you provide the content, people who want to get better will get better. Go to my YouTube channel. There's 700 free videos. I've had people say, I didn't have a dime. I literally went through your YouTube channel and watched every friggin' video, did every downloadable exercise, because with every podcast, I give exercises and journal prompts and all this other stuff. And again, all of this is work that I'm, I guess, paying myself to do. I don't know. But it's fulfilling something in my dharma, right? My purpose in life. And so that's more important to me. And I don't think it's an either and proposition. I also make money writing books, and I make money selling courses, right? I do. Giving talks. But I think that we have to look at our own motivation, even when it comes to having a social media presence. What is it that you're hoping for? And what I would caution young therapists, I would say the most important thing is for you to actually become an expert. If you've been out of school for 2 years, babe, you're not.
Correct.
You have not seen enough clients. Stop saying you're a trauma expert. You're not. You're literally not.
And we say that with all of the love in the world.
Of course.
I say that to former me when I was 2 years out of school.
Yes.
Just not an expert.
But you have people who are not even therapists who are saying that they're trauma experts. And I'm like, I'm going to say you're not. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say I don't think you are.
You are not.
Or
you are not.
I can fix your trauma in a weekend. Literally,
no,
that's impossible.
No, you cannot.
Literally, no. Not
Absolutely
happening.
not.
And listen, you guys listening, I'm not saying you're doing this. I throw this out there because I see so much in these interweb streets that I feel like there's such a better way of doing it. And that if you keep your focus on always learning, you are. Here you are in this group. So I know you are people who value learning and higher education, but never stop. If you are in private practice, pay for supervision.
Yes.
You're not done. You don't know. I was paying for supervision up until, I was long into, and I wasn't doing it weekly anymore, but long into. I still have someone I call if I have a case that is baffling, or if I'm having countertransference where I'm like, why do I feel this way about this client? I don't get it. I know I can get in touch with my old therapist who also supervised me and be like, hey, can we do a session on this client?
Yes.
Have pride in your work. It is your brains. It is your ability to figure things out that's going to make you a fantastic therapist for other people. So always be learning, and not in a way that you think you're bad. It's not that. It's just that experience is the thing that makes us seasoned therapists. And there's nothing that can replace the experience of just being in the trenches with clients.
Yes. Well, and there's no possible way. If you allow yourself to maintain the curiosity, there is no possible way. If you admit to yourself like, oh no, I'm not the expert yet. There are so many varieties of human and so many varieties of human issues that there just isn't a way that you couldn't learn something. So if you maintain that curiosity, it will be protective of you and your professional boundaries.
Yes, and here's the thing. The world is changing. Look at how popular IFS is now. It's amazing.
Here we are.
Great. Let's go.
Yes.
Right? There's we are changing and go to professional things. I've done a bunch of things already this year. I went with Esther Perel to Costa Rica to um, erotic intelligence. It was a
I bet that was
week-long thing. It was unbelievable. I mean, I love her. We came up together. We're friends, but still, I was there as a student, right? And then I just presented at the PESI conference in DC. Boundaries for Therapists, actually, is what I was
Lovely.
presenting, which was amazing. I did sessions in Brooklyn that Esther put on where it's literally therapists presenting their hardest cases, and then all of these super seasoned therapists talking about the interventions that they would do. Like, there's so much exciting
That
stuff.
sounds so much fun. That sounds like a
So
blast.
amazing. It was so amazing. So I say this because there is always more learning to do, but it also keeps me 27 years in, and I'm lit up about doing this still, because what an honor and a privilege it is, you know?
You're saying something I think that might be interesting for us to maybe hold on to, that staying with your internal boundaries, maintaining this curiosity, it sounds like for you that it has staved off burnout. Would that be the case?
Yeah, I mean, I burned out, but not because of this. I burned out from writing too many books in too short of a period of time. I mean, I'm back now, but yes. I do think that there's truth in not just sort of checking the therapy box either, and really being present with your clients. And it requires a lot. I mean, so many clients over the years, obviously. And back then, my memory was so good, I never took notes. Like, I didn't take notes. I would have like 50 clients in a week and not take notes. And I would just drop in. I do not think I could do that now. Honestly, being 61, I don't think I could. But I also love the idea of, once I started really taking notes, that also is helpful for things to look back on, of like, wow, what was I struggling with, or what was going on? And what am I interested in, right?
Yes.
What population am I interested in? Who am I most naturally skilled to help? You know? Oh, another thing before, I know we're going to have to jump, but I wanted to, in the thing that I'm going to give you guys, the little workbook, I also included the Boundary Boss Bill of Rights.
Love it.
And I want to just quickly talk about it, because this is something that can be really helpful. You can share this with your clients, and you can do it two ways. So I won't go, you guys are going to get them, you'll be able to go over them, but I'll read a couple, and then there's two ways that we do it. So the first one is, you have the right to say no or yes to others without feeling guilty. Then we flip it and we say, I have the right to say no or yes to others without feeling guilty. And we sort of rate how that feels. And then we flip it to other people. Other people have the right to say yes or no to me without feeling guilty. And this really will kick up so many different kinds of feelings around boundaries. But the reason I came up with the Boundary Boss Bill of Rights is because my clients were so confused. They kept being like, am I being unreasonable? Is this a boundary? Like, I don't even know, right? The second one, which is probably my favorite one of all of them, is, you have the right to make mistakes, to course correct, or to change your mind.
You have the right to change your mind one is one, even before your book, is one that I have to, like, professionally and personally cling to, because there's this thing that happens inside of me, not only as a clinician, but I think pretty sure is like old childhood stuff, being raised in a Christian conservative household, of you have to see it through no matter what, always. When you let yourself admit, no, you can change your mind at any given time.
It's okay. And the thing is, when we do, then we don't live a whole life that we then regret. We go, you know what? I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm even just changing careers. I was a talent agent for almost a decade before I became a therapist. Now, I don't think that that was a mistake. I just changed my mind. I just outgrew a toxic industry and wanted to do something else. But people are like, why would you leave? You were making so much money. You were representing supermodels and celebrities and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, because I was unhappy. I mean, and that is having good internal boundaries. And trust me, I was already in my 30s by then and had a shit ton of therapy. Because in my early 20s, I never would have been able to leave a job like that, because everyone else thought it was the coolest thing, you know?
Yes.
And I would have been unduly influenced by other people's thoughts when my boundaries were less good.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our final, before you tell us where people can find you in the world, for our final segment that I need a name for this one. So, but it's our Reddit question segment.
I love
So
it.
this is coming directly from a therapist who has posted trying to get answers on r/therapist. And this therapist says, I have a client who I see on a bi-weekly basis. She is someone who puts others before herself and doesn't know what it means to make room for herself in her own life. These are her words. And we've talked about how it's easier for her to say yes to others but no to herself because her role has always been what she can do for others and how she can make others around her feel good. I introduced the idea of boundaries, and understandably so, she is not a fan and isn't comfortable with boundaries. So, thoughts. What is the importance of boundaries? And maybe for this therapist, maybe they're experiencing that client's discomfort. What would you say to this therapist?
Well, part of it is let's look at this conundrum from the point of view that what your client thinks and how she feels and what she wants matters. And when you're endlessly self-abandoning in the service of other people's happiness, according to you, you're living a life that says how I feel, what I want, and what I think. Doesn't matter as long as there's no conflict, as long as everyone else is okay, as long as everyone else is happy. And the therapist has said it's easier for her to say yes to others and no to herself, but that is a short-term plan because it will not stay easier. Eventually, that is a one-way ticket to Bitterland. And there's literally no other stops on that train.
Absolutely.
So sooner or later, that client is going to be like, I cannot believe these entitled mother effers in my life. I'm
That's
so
right.
pissed. How did they think they could ask me? Like, you can't give like that forever, and then you end up really trying to give from an empty bucket, and it just doesn't work. Not to mention, she's controlling. Right? This is what you're describing as high-functioning codependency, where I want to control the feeling states of the people around me, which means I don't care how they actually feel. I don't care if they're going through something. I want them to be happy because that makes me feel good. So I want them to feel good. Get on your own side of the street, lady, because how they feel is their side of the street, and how you feel is your side of the street. So, and people will say to me, hey, maybe I'm just nice, Terry. Ever think about that? I'm like, no, man, because if you can't not do it, if it is compulsive, it is not you being nice.
That's right.
Compulsion means you're automatically doing it, which is, I imagine, what this client is doing to control all environments that she's in. But it's a lonely existence, and one day you're going to wake up and be really bitter that nobody knows who you are, because saying yes when you want to say no and never giving people, you're literally spending your life giving corrupted data about yourself to other people. And then you're like, why am I having this existential loneliness crisis? And why do I feel like I'm in a relationship with people, but I'm still lonely? Because literally nobody knows you. So what I would say to that client is that she's worth knowing, and the only way she's going to be known is if she's willing to let people see who she is, which means sharing her preferences, her limits, and her deal breakers with them.
I beautifully said. I'm constantly telling my clients, when you believe that you need to be nice, or when you need to have that people-pleasing response, you are taking your own autonomy, but you are also taking the autonomy of somebody else.
Yeah. And they did not ask you to. It's just like all of the auto advice giving and all of the trying to control what's happening. That's all boundary violations. But that, again, that's another conversation on high functioning codependency.
Absolutely, which I think you're just going to have to come back and have.
Yeah, inherent in that is disordered boundaries, though. Hopefully, though, what we've talked about will be helpful. And in the little workbook that you guys will get, and I'll give you where you can get it, is going to be different exercises. And you can share them with your clients. You can have them do a resentment inventory. You can ask them, write 10 things that you're tolerating right now. That will also lead us to some disordered boundaries. I'll give you the 4-step boundary plan, like how to actually build one. So make sure that you go there and get that, because I feel like that could be really supportive for what you're doing in your practice.
Absolutely. It will all be in the show notes for all of you to be able to find. Terry, how do people find you in the world? And tell us about this new book, Too Much.
You can find me at terrycole.com. There's that. I mostly hang out on Instagram, which is just my name, at Terry Cole. This book is for women who are overfunctioning, overgiving, friggin' exhausted, maybe a little pissed. Women who need a vacation and need a break. It's about high-functioning codependency, which is a concept that I created because my clients, who are all these super high-functioning women, did not see themselves. If I would say, oh, hey, what you're describing, Erica, that is a codependent pattern in that relationship, they would immediately be like, no. Wrong, lady. They're like, I'm not dependent on squat, Terry. Everyone's dependent on me. I'm making all the money. I'm making all the moves. And I was like, oh, my clients don't know what codependency is. And so what I really did, they thought you have to be involved with an alcoholic. They're like, I'm not enabling an addict. How can I be codependent? I'm like, yeah, okay. That was 1972 definition. So I knew that codependency needed an upgrade and an update. And that's exactly what this book is. People can get it at hfcbook.com.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm so excited. And I'm going to go out and get Too Much because I have not read that one yet. But Boundary Boss is on my rotating working with clients boundaries book. So I so appreciate your work and everything that you have given us in the field. And folks, we very much appreciate you sticking around to the end. You can get a CEU if you become a member of 2X Labs. Head over to 2xlabs.org. That's TWO, the letter X, labs.org. We'd love to have you. And Terry, thank you again for coming on the show. And
Thank
we
you for
will
having
see
me.
you all next time.